to I Am Here. It is a podcast where we share love and stories, and I am your co-host, Gabi, and that is Amarilis. We are cousins, and we talk about everything. You can follow us on IAmHerePod on Instagram and on all social media platforms, or just like and subscribe here. Yes. Today we are joined with
Vanessa!
What are we talking about? What are we going to talk about?
Not real ghosts. We're going to talk about ghosting. Vanessa brought it up like a while ago when we were talking about this. And she's like, ooh, ghosting in a dating world, just communicating, dealing with how to kind of cope with that and trying to figure out what the heck is going on, especially in this generation you can mention of just like, it's so much easier now to just be like, shoot, disappear, and just ghosting in dating, in even like friendships. Because I was thinking about it when after like you talked about it, I'm like, I have a problem being the ghost in friendships a lot of times. Yeah. But you had different experiences than I do, because I was thinking about it. I'm like, I don't know if I've been ghosted, and if I have been ghosted, because I was talking to Gabriela about it, I was like, if I have been ghosted, I didn't even notice, because I'm like, yeah, I'm horrible.
Well, maybe because you're used to it and you're okay with it, you know what I mean? And I think one of the most important things that because there are a lot of people are not, like, it's a big topic, like a lot of people don't like it when people are ghosting them, but I feel like,
well, before you start, because like I think maybe we should define what ghosting is. Like, how would you define
ghosting? That's a good idea. Ghosting is when you are in it could be any kind of relationship. You're developing or becoming friends, or even if you've already been friends or in a relationship with somebody, and all of a sudden the person just disappears. They don't respond to messages. They don't answer your phone calls. They don't want to spend time with you anymore. They just literally turn into a ghost and disappear.
And there's no explanation usually in terms of ghosting. Yeah.
It could be there was problems, and they just disappear when there's problems. There could be times where everything was perfectly fine and then they just disappear.
Yeah. And I think in the times that people disappear when everything seems fine, I feel like those are the hardest times I can imagine. Like, because at least when there's conflict, you understand why. But like if someone just leaves, like that's terrifying. I mean, I can understand how that can cause some type of trauma too. Like,
well, I mean, it hits
any moment.
It hits abandonment issues if you have it. It's just like a complete abandonment. Like everything's fine, and then now this person's gone, and it's like, whoa, I had no forewarning.
Yeah. What did I do wrong? Did I do something wrong?
Exactly.
Why did they go?
Yeah. And then you're like asking yourself, like questioning every aspect of yourself, and like, okay, what was it when I did this? Like the reason, like, okay, I've never really truly been ghosted, and if I have, like Amarilis, haven't really noticed. But I have lots of friends that are constantly ghosted, and like they always tell me, like they're like, I've watched them when I'm with them. They're like going through their text messages, like looking at what they said, thinking, okay, I must have sounded bad here, or like finding the issue. And a lot of the time they're like, oh, I'm the problem and I don't know how to fix it, because like I didn't get an explanation. So at least that's what I hear from other people.
I think like when you're being ghosted, there's different reactions. There's some people that it's a form of rejection. Obviously, it's like one of the most difficult ways to feel rejected, is you're having a loss. It's almost like someone died that you know what I mean, and they're not responding. You don't know when they're going to respond to you again, if you'll ever see them again. So it's a significant loss that you go through. So yeah, I agree. It's definitely traumatizing, especially if you really had strong feelings for the person. Yeah. I think other people respond like they don't even notice, because either it's normal to them, or maybe they didn't feel that attached to that person, so it doesn't make that big of a difference. But I feel like it depends on your level of connection with that person. Like if you feel like you know, they were a good friend or someone that you were dating that you were super interested in. Every time you hung out, everything was great. And then all of a sudden they just stopped talking to you. Yeah, that's scary. That's sad. Like, why would someone do that?
Yeah.
Oh man. Like you're saying all these things, I'm like, it's my heart, like bam, bam, bam. Because as you were talking and you're just giving the examples of what it's like to be on the receiving end, and you're mentioning some people may not notice it because they may have not been so attached to that person, so it's not so painful. And this has been something that I've been working on and continue to work on, of how I attach to people, and communicating and expressing and sharing how important this person is in my life, whether it's dating or friendships. And thinking about that, because it was one of my friends who called me out on it. She called me out, and the fact is, like, I had no idea I was the person ghosting people and just not connecting and not following up and just disappearing. And I live my life this way. I like looking back and evaluating and really looking into it, I never really learned how to create healthy relationships, like with people outside of my family. I never really learned how to make real friends, to socialize. So it always came back, like, as I was looking in, it came back to the thought of, I'm unimportant in people's lives. I never saw myself as significant in people's lives. So not following up with people made sense to me, because I didn't think that I was a significant part in their life, so they wouldn't miss me. They wouldn't notice that I was gone. So I would just leave and not be part of their life, without realizing how my choice affected that person. And when people would leave, so I would have friends and I wouldn't communicate for a while, and then I would be like, oh, hey, let me reach out to this person. And when I would reach out, they wouldn't answer, they wouldn't respond, they just never talked to me again. My thought was like, oh, what's wrong with them? Like, why? Like, oh, they just must. Yeah, it's just like, oh, what's wrong with them? You know, like, oh, they must have some issue. Maybe something's going on, or maybe they lost interest. They got bored in the relationship, because that's how low self-worth I had. I was like, oh, they just got bored and they just moved on. All right, whatever. Not realizing that they were just responding to my, like, dismissal, to my actions. And it was one of my friends just 2 or 3 years ago. It was the same thing. I didn't show up for a very, very, very important event for her. She invited me and I didn't go to the event. I was like, oh, well, I'm not significant enough. She just invited. It was almost like a pity invite is what I thought. She's like, oh, you know, she has her friends, she has her family that are more important than me. It's not going to make a difference if I show up or not. And then time passed and I texted her just like normal, like, hey, what's up? And I could notice with her tone, she was upset. And she was able to admit it, and she told me, hey, no, I'm actually really mad. I'm really mad and disappointed, and told me how meaningful it was for her that I attend, and that I didn't really broke her heart. And that's when I was able to sit back and be like, yo, I'm hurting people by not showing up. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize how much damage I was creating by thinking that I was.
And that's what I would say. I think a lot of people that ghost, like, I think everybody ghosts. Everyone's done it at least once. You know what I mean? Like, how many times have you ever been to the bar and some guy tried buying you a drink, and you let him buy you a drink, you weren't attracted to him, and you disappeared? You went to the bathroom with your girls. Oh, I gotta go to the bathroom, and you never go back.
You just skip.
Every woman has done this. I know, like, if like listens to this and they're like, no, that wasn't me. You lie. We all have done this at the bar. There's always that one creepy dude.
You just give the wrong number. You just change one digit in the telephone.
Everyone's done it. It may not be a form of like text or whatever, but everyone's done it. And I was just going to make the point that it's okay for us to do it, because for whatever reasons, like you said, for you felt like it wasn't a big deal. You know what I mean? Like you know, didn't think, and maybe there's some self-esteem issues about that, you know what I mean? But for you, it wasn't a big deal. It's like, whatever, I'm not going to go. She has family and friends for that particular, you know, experience you had. And maybe some other people feel that way too. Like, well, that person probably doesn't really like me, or that person probably has so many people trying to, you know, date them and hit them up. Not gonna miss, So if I don't respond, they're not.
I'm like you guys are talking, and I'm thinking about all the different reasons people ghost each other, and I'm listening to Amarilis, right? And I'm like, whoa, we both were talking about how the fact that we both have the tendency to be the ghoster, and then I realized that we do it for different reasons, because like you were talking about like, oh, I'm significant in this and that, but then I realized that and it's not just me, because I know a lot of people like this, that we tend to self-sabotage because and then there's like this big thing, especially on Twitter. Like the other day I was on Twitter, and then it was like this thing is like, have you ever ghosted someone? Or no, like this, if you ever ghosted someone because you were scared they were going to ghost you first. And it had over 400K likes, like, and I'm like, whoa, like everybody's done, like, not everybody, but like so many people, like you said, a different form of it. Doesn't have to be through text or like through a dating app or something, where like, and I talked about this with my friend too. She was like, oh, like, I don't know if this guy likes me, and like I'm like, she seemed to really like him. They were fine, like they were going, and like they seemed to be hitting off a lot, and she was happy. And then the next week I'm talking to her, and she goes, oh yeah, like we just stopped talking to each other. And I was like, oh, why? And she's like, I don't know, I was just scared that he was gonna ghost me, so I just like didn't talk to him anymore. And I was like, wait, but did you talk to him about it? And I was like, oh man, like I do that too. Like I tend to be like, oh, because I remember when I was on dating apps for like 1 week, like couple of months.
That happens all the time. Like, I'm just gonna try it. No, done.
Yeah, I was on Bumble, and I like think back to it. And actually the other day, like when I was thinking about this topic, I felt so bad because I was thinking about the guys in my DMs that I was the one, because like for Bumble you have to be the one to make the first move, like the woman makes the first move. And like this guy was telling me his life story about how he was like a medic in the army, and he seemed so cool. And then I ghosted him because he sent me paragraphs that were so beautiful, and I was like, oh, he's cool, I'm gonna end up liking him. And I was looking for a relationship at the time, but like I was just like, nah, because then he's gonna leave, and then he's gonna ghost me, so I'm just not gonna reply. And then the ironic thing is, now I'm dating someone, and they're gonna be a medic in the army, so.
Practice on that, bro.
That is ironic. Well, I mean, and that's, I think, I don't know, like I'm thinking back of times that I've ghosted people as well, and I ghosted my ex. And the reason why I ghosted him was I didn't want to have to say goodbye again, you know, and we had agreed to be best friends, and he was already with somebody else, or still is with somebody else. And for me, I was just like, he'll be fine. This time I know for sure, like if I just go away, he'll be fine. He's with somebody else, and I don't have to worry about how he feels. And we had just, our relationship towards the end, it was just, we were so in and out. Like I just felt like I didn't owe him an explanation. You know what I mean? Like, and I feel like even there's been other times, I've done the online dating more than a week. I've done it for many years. I've taken a break right now, but I've done it, and I've been ghosted. I've ghosted. And I remember, like, you know, some guys I was really like upset about it. Some I was really happy that they ghosted me because I didn't really feel the connection. But I got to a point where, why explain myself? Like, why do I have to explain, like, okay, well, you know, I don't really like you for this, this, and this, so I'm not going to talk to you no more. I didn't want to have to go through all that. You know, you don't never know what someone is going on the inside too. Like, what if they're having self-esteem issues, and I'm like, by the way, I'm not attracted to you anymore. So that's really uncomfortable. You know what I mean? And being a people pleaser like I am, it's really hard for me to say, hey, you know, I don't want to hurt this person's feelings, but you know what I mean? It's like finding that balance, and sometimes just disappearing is easier, you know? And I'm not saying it's okay. And I mean, either way it hurts. Rejection sucks no matter what. But it's hard,
Ghosting,
you know? It's
like the ghosting when we've
who
mentioned
should
it
you
before.
ghost and who should you not ghost?
Yeah, it's like the ghosting kind of leaves you with that question of like, what did I do wrong and is it my fault kind of thing. That confusion, that just not being clear is so unkind. However, like you were mentioning, it's, as you were talking about it, I was like, there are times when maybe disappearing and stopping communication is actually better, especially when I've already set a boundary, I've already explained and said, I don't want to do this. And I'm having to redo it over and over. Sometimes it's better to just not have communication, especially if it's not working. So I can see how, like, because ghosting in the term itself has such a negative connotation, like, but sometimes it may be healthier in some certain circumstances that I can't have a healthy talk with this person. And it's maybe unsafe or just unhealthy to keep engaging in this, that it's better for me to leave because I have to care for myself. And just thinking of like the moments of dating, like the online dating, to me, I don't consider that ghosting, but that's because I'm a ghost. So I'm the one who's always ghosting. So I'm like, I'm like, that doesn't count because I remember having like some messages. I'm horrible. I remember having some messages.
Like serial ghost there.
I am, and I don't mean to, but I'm like, but I know. So I'm not even gonna front like I don't.
But I mean, at the same time, like for me, I kind of would prefer someone to ghost me if they know they're not interested in me, than to trail me along and play with my heart. You know what I mean? Because there's guys that they don't to say I'm not into you, and I don't have the balls sometimes to say I'm not into you, but instead of ghosting, they'll just kind of trail you along and just make you feel like shit at the end. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's one of those things. It's just kind of like,
one of the things though, because I remember having this conversation, and not the specific conversation, but it came up in one of the conversations with my brother, and he's like, no, if I go on a date with somebody, and I see that I'm not interested in them and I know it's not going to work, I'll tell them, hey, it was nice to spend time with you, but I don't feel it. So, but it was really nice to meet you. And he makes it a point not to ghost and to be very honest with people. And I'm like, well, I admire that. But he says it works for him and people can respect that because it's the first date or the second date. And it's just like, we don't have an attachment just yet. And when I was doing online dating and the messaging, I was like, I didn't even meet people, all right? I didn't even go on a date with these people. I'm just having conversation in messages, all right? And then I'm living my life because I don't know you. So I don't respond to a message in like 2 or 3 days because I'm living my life and I'm not on a dating app 24/7. Sorry, buddy. But so the messages I would get, they would be like, hey, like, how are we supposed to have a conversation, or how would you work in a relationship if you take a day or two to respond to messages? I'm like, bro, like, I'm not in a commitment with you. So don't, like, I was like, I'm just having a conversation. And I would say, I don't think this is going to work, because I think we may be looking for different things. I think we're on different levels where I'm just trying to get to know people and you're looking for something serious, so I don't think it's going to work. So I would try to put those boundaries and be honest. But they're like, oh, well, no. And they would continue with messaging and trying to continue to engage once I set the boundary and said, I don't want to anymore. And that's when I ghosted, because, like, again, I already explained to you why. I don't need to re-explain the situation. So I'm just not going to respond because you're not accepting my choice in this.
I feel like appropriate time to ghost.
Yeah, I feel like that's more of like, you're not respecting my boundaries, and so I don't need to stay in this toxic situation. Like, there's certain people, at least in my experience, that like I'm talking to them and then I've already established my boundaries, like especially through text, and then they're just like, oh, hey, like blah blah blah, and then it turns into like, oh, like they pretend like they're gonna go talk about it, but it just turns into a circle, and it's just like a toxic circle, and like
they're just trying to pull you back in.
Exactly. So then right then and there, it's like, okay, I am not going to respond. That's when I ghost. It's like, I'm not going to respond because I already know what's going to happen. So I just prefer to, like, I already stated what my stance is on this, and I'm just gonna take my distance for like the sake of my own mental health. But like the idea of ghosting itself, like you said, there are different times. Like there's a good time to, I mean, letting go of a situation, and there's like the negative connotation of ghosting without giving any explanation, and that's like you said, it brings about like abandonment issues and everything too, like it just, especially if you have those already. And I think the hardest part too is like because a lot of our communication is virtual, it's so much easier. So much easier to ghost. So then when it comes to real life communication skills are like, sometimes we're lacking in them. At least for me, I know that I'm still working on my communication skills, especially if you come from like different backgrounds and maybe your family didn't have such a great communication with each other. It's hard. So then you see this opportunity to just leave without explanation, and it's like, oh, this is easier.
I don't have to see you sad. I don't have to see you upset. So I don't have to feel anything. So bye.
And then from the other perspective, we're jerks. Like from the other perspective, it's like we did not give the explanation. They deserved an explanation.
Absolutely.
It's disrespectful.
Yeah. Too. Like I know when I ghost, I'm doing it wrong. I know like it's wrong. You know what I mean? But it's so, like you said, you're behind a screen. It's easy. You don't have an attachment with that person. Like, it's one of those things where it's just like, I know what the right thing to do is, but I don't know. It's comfortable. It's comfortable. You're right. It's very comfortable because, like, for me, like I said, I don't like to hurt anybody, and ultimately, it's almost like a lie. You know, when you lie,
because you are hurting them. You're just not dealing.
A lot of times people lie because they're trying to protect the other person's feelings. You know what I mean? They don't want to tell them the truth because they feel like the truth is going to break them. But
the truth is, like on that point, like I think about it because I've had this conversation with people too. Because as we're talking, I'm like, oh, I've been ghosted actually, and it hurt. But the conversation is like, listen, we're lying to ourselves saying, I don't want to hurt you, but really we don't want to see you hurt, because long term when I'm ghosting you, I know I'm hurting you. I know I'm hurting you. I just don't see the hurt. So it's really just self-serving.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true. Ooh.
That's true.
The reason
it's a hard pill to swallow, but it's true.
Yeah, because I say that because okay, so like I mentioned, I've been really bad and ghost because I have a lack of skill in socializing and knowing how to connect in relationships. And I'm telling you, it was such a blind spot and such ignorance on my part until I had my friend confront me. Because every time that I would have some kind of interaction where people are like, no, like, what's up, blah, 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 I would brush it off as like, oh, they're just sensitive, or they're making a big deal about something because I wasn't attached, because I didn't think I was important. So I'm like, how can this friendship mean anything to you? We just had a good time, but like, why would you be hurt if I was in your life or not, kind of thing, right? Now I can say that, but back then it was just like so dismissive, like, I don't get it. Like, why are you stressing? It's whatever. Until I got into a relationship with a person who was like my mirror. This person would do the same things, would react in the same ways I would, but except I was on the receiving end this time. So I could sit in this relationship and be like, this is what it's like to be in a relationship with me. This sucks. I didn't realize how like toxic I was until I was with somebody who was just like me, and they were doing the same exact things. Of I can notice like the like distance and slowly not talking with things, and I'm like, hold up. I would call them out because I knew what it was, because it's me, right? So having those conversations and saying, you cannot just assume what I'm thinking. You cannot just assume how I'm feeling. A lot of the times our conversations were, well, I ghosted or I disappeared because I thought you were going to be mad. Or I ghosted and I disappeared because I knew you were going to feel bad. Or I thought you were going to say this. And I had to clear that up with my partner at the time and say, that's not even what I was thinking. That is not how I was feeling. You're just assuming and robbing me the opportunity of showing you who I am and robbing me the opportunity of being clear of what I want and what I need. You're not giving me the chance to show you that you're wrong in assuming things.
Well, and not only that, but it's almost like when we ghost people, and you know how I said, like, we're worried about how they feel. We don't want to hurt them. That's not fair to assume that they're going to be so devastated that they're not going to be able to handle the truth of not being interested in them. I mean, people, you know, rejection sucks, you know, it hurts, but you know what I mean? At least you
give me the respect to let me decide for myself, kind of thing. Like,
it's true. And you're not undermining their strength, because you don't know. Like, I know if I've been in circumstances where I've been ghosted and it really hurt me, because I'm just like, man, why didn't you just let me know you weren't interested? I would have been fine.
Just
like,
tell
you should have just told me. But this disappearing act is just like, well, now I don't know what to think. Like, I don't know where this came from, you know?
Sometimes worse than getting led on sometimes.
Yeah, because it's like, I would much rather deal with you telling me the truth and saying you're not interested in me or you don't want something with me than to disappear. And being on the receiving end, I was like, that's cowardly. Like, now you're just running away. And then I could look back and look at all the times that I did that, and I'm like, wow, it was because I was being cowardly in some situations. I didn't know how to deal with being honest with myself. So how could I be honest with somebody else? And being scared of being, again, sucked back into a situation that I didn't want to be in. And it's almost like having to build a confidence in myself to know, no, I have the skills, I have the tools, I have the confidence to deal with whatever. So I could be more honest with other people now because I have more of a security in who I am. But I appreciate being called out on it. I appreciated being called out, because if my friend didn't call me out on it and really sit down and have a heart-to-heart conversation, because I had to be vulnerable enough to accept that I hurt her and to sit and be like, I have to take accountability for my actions, and I have to make amends. I have to show that I'm working on something differently. And we could just sit down and talk, and we're both crying because my perspective was so different than hers. But I appreciate her doing that, because otherwise I would have continued doing the same things, not knowing how it affected other people.
It's true. Like, even having this conversation, like, I know that ghosting, I always felt kind of bad because I like to be an honest person, you know, and I'm usually pretty direct and forward with people, you know what I mean? So every time I did ghost, especially when I was doing online dating the last couple years, because when I was younger, I mean, I didn't know what the hell I was doing anyways, but now that I'm a little older, I felt bad doing it a few times. And then other times I didn't. But now, like you said, now that I'm trying to have more healthy relationships, trying to have a healthier relationship with myself, you know, and it doesn't have to be so scary to be honest with people and tell them how you really feel. It just like you said, your brother, like, how hard is it to say, hey, I had a great time with you, no hard feelings, I'm just not feeling a connection with you romantically, and you know, I'm cool with being friends, but I really don't see us moving forward romantically. You know, how hard is it to say that, you know? Like, I admire him for that. That's really like something that I'm even going to take away from this conversation. And like, really, when I'm ready to start dating again, I'm really going to keep that in mind. Like, why can't I just say, hey, thanks for the conversation. Thanks for hanging out. You know what I mean? But I'm just not feeling this, and it's no hard feelings. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just, I don't feel that chemistry.
Yeah, that's hard. Oh no. I'm like thinking about all the times I could have done that and I did not. And I'm like,
It's
oh, I wish I could just like apologize. I'm like, hello, I'm so sorry.
remember me?
Remember me? Like track down the people on Bumble.
Oh my God.
You remember that whole conversation we had about The Office? And then I just ghosted you when you asked me about politics. I'm so sorry.
I'm just gonna put a disclaimer on my future profile. I'm gonna put a disclaimer to all the ones I've ghosted before. I won't do that no more to you.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I think Amarilis should still put a disclaimer. I might, maybe. No, just kidding.
Girl, that's the truth. That is the truth. I'm not even gonna front like I got it all together, because I will. It's not even that I will. And it's not intentional, but again, it's something that I'm continuing to learn and notice, and I still have blind spots. Because even with my friend, when we had that conversation, I was like, I cannot promise you that I won't do it again, because I'm still learning how to be a better friend, and I'm still learning how to be a better person. So I just need you to hold me accountable. Yeah, and it's almost asking people to check you when you're wrong, because it's so like I'm so ignorant to the fact that I do it. I need somebody to let me know, hey, Amma, like wait a minute, are you ghosting, or like are you okay, or what's going on? And I'm like, oh right, that's right. So I do need that accountability.
Yeah, I'm thinking about a friend that I ghosted, and now I'm like, oh, this was like 2 years ago, but I'm like, oh, I didn't mean to, and then I'm like, oh, I should be like, hey, I still love you, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, it happens. Like, there's times where I go into my shell of life, and I kind of isolate myself, and I shut everybody out just because I'm trying to give a lot of self-care to myself. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I wouldn't consider that ghosting. I mean, I think that friends, sometimes we kind of go in our own directions. It doesn't mean that we don't care about them anymore. It's just, I feel like ghosting is more like when you're steady talking to somebody, like on a regular basis. You know what I mean? Like the ones that hurt the most are the ones that you're just like, you're talking to them every day. You're saying good morning every morning to each other. You're saying good night every night. And then all of a sudden they don't do that no more. To me, that's what ghosting is. Like, I don't know. I feel like there's times where, you know, we could probably be better at communicating. You know, I know I'm still working on that because I've had a lot of unhealthy relationships. And I grew up in a dysfunctional family like everybody else in this world. So I'm still working on my things, and I'm not going to be perfect. And I think it's awesome, Amarilis, that, you know, you found a friend that she can be honest with you and be like, hey, you're doing it and you're not talking, you know, I need you here. Like, what's going on? I don't have a lot of people like that in my life, so I can see how it's easy for me to just recluse again and nobody knows. And you know what I mean? Like, I have my cousins that they kind of like will send the Navy SEALs if I don't respond. So, but
it's true what you had mentioned, you know, and especially being introverts as we are, because even in our friendship, like we'll go a long period of time without talking. And it's just like, oh, and hey, I don't get mad either, because I know but again, I'm the goat, so of course I wouldn't get mad, because I'm just like disconnected from people.
I'm partly a ghost, so I must not, you know what I mean? It doesn't bother me as much
but
either,
it is like working on myself and working in the relationships that have been holding me accountable, and also keeping other people accountable, like especially in that relationship that I had where it was seeing myself. I'm learning and continuing to practice to let people know when I do need to go into my bubbles. Like if I am feeling off, or I need to re-energize, or I'm really busy, giving people a heads up so that way they're not like, yo, where did she go? Saying, I need some me time, or just simple that. Like I'll say it like that. It's like, I need some Amma time, and it's not about you. It's just I need my me time. And people can respect that and honor that, because they understand who I am. And I don't leave them with a hurt feeling. And I could check my partner too. It's just like, yo, if you need your time, just let me know and say, hey, I just need solo time right now. All right, cool. I respect that. Let me know when you're ready.
That, yeah, I totally get that. I think that I think because we're introverts, we do it so naturally, but other people we have to understand not everybody thinks like us. Not everybody feels like us. So especially our extroverted family members and friends, like that, to them, it's like, what are you doing? Like, if I don't answer the phone when my cousin calls, she'll keep calling, she'll keep texting me like, are you okay? Why aren't you responding? You know what I mean? And to me, it's just like, chill out. Like, I was in the bathroom.
That's exactly. I'm like, no, I'm busy. I live a life outside of you.
I'm walking outside. I like nature.
Yeah.
Like, enjoy fresh air.
Or even as simple as like, I didn't even have my phone on me. Like, I don't have my phone. I could like live without my phone and just have it away for like a good day or two, and people are like, where are you? Yep. And I may not get messages for several days. I'm like, I just didn't have my phone on me because I need to have just my time. And people wouldn't know that unless I told them.
Yeah.
Right. I understand that. And I feel like that's one thing, like, especially when I'm going through like my own personal journeys and stuff like that, I do seek a lot of alone time. And it doesn't mean that I don't care about my family and friends. But like you said, I think that would be best, is to give them the heads up. It's like, hey, it's not that I'm not thinking of you or I don't care about you. I need some me time.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many lessons. I'm like, feeling it. We're still learning. We're all exploring, and it's nice to have conversations like this and hold each other accountable, but hold ourselves accountable as well, and knowing how we may impact other people. And to close the show, we usually go around with our gratitudes. So it could be about anything. So one thing that you may be grateful for today.
Well, I just want to say I'm grateful for having a friend like you, Amarilis, because I have always wanted to participate in a podcast, and my introverted self would never start it on my own. So I'm grateful for having a friend like you to bring me out of my shell here and there.
So cute.
You won my heart.
Yes.
I'm so glad that you did this. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, invite me to all of them. I'll wait. I'm here.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think we should. Yes, I'm so. I am grateful for this conversation, and I'm grateful for learning more about myself in terms of like seeing myself in the light of what other people see, and not so much through my own eyes. And that's a really cool thing. And learning that through conversation, I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. Oof. I'm also grateful for this conversation and for good friends, where we can have conversations like this and be very vulnerable and candid and recognizing our own faults and the hurts that come from it, so we can grow. I'm just so grateful for being able to be corrected and to be corrected and held accountable in a loving way. So appreciate that. Oof, good, so good. Yeah. We're so glad that you guys are here. Please follow us. We're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube under IAmHerePod. Email us at IAmHerePod@gmail with any feedback, thoughts, questions, or suggestions for new topics. Just share and subscribe. It really helps people connect and get our stories out there. And if it was helpful for you, it may be helpful for somebody else.
Vanessa, do you have any plugs, like anything that people can find you on?
I mean, I'm on Instagram, so Zenfulness17 is my Instagram.
Okay. We are so glad that you are here, and we are here with you.